Okay, Eis Dalet, continuing our Chazorah, as we're going through the Eis. So the difference that we've been discussing till now between Kais Yeshua Esa, that's Malchus, that's David, that requires Aliyah, the Makabel, that's because Malchus descends into a world that needs an Aliyah. Bia, that's Avodas HaBirurim. But who is being the Mevader? The Mevader is Zoh. Ma is Mevader Ban, as we explained. So there's the need of Kais Yeshua's Esa, Mashenkein, which is not the case of the Gvi of Yosef, who is the Mashpia. Yosef is Yesoid. So there is the descent, there is the union of Yerida in Yesoid. What's the Yerida there? As you said, there's two ways that the upper and the lower can connect. Either the upper descends or the lower ascends. And there's a third way where the upper descends also. But our conclusion in understanding the Maimer is that the lower descends. That's what's the descent of the lower? That's the union of the Tzava Yeshua's Ya'akov. That thing, he said that outright, that the Yeshua, that the Mocker, just get it straight, I don't want to say this wrong. The Chibur happens at the level of Yesoid. That's the Mocker Achibur. And what's the Yerida in Yesoid? He said that's the Yeshuas that descend to Yesoid. Where was that stated? We said that explicitly. No, it's not. The emes is that the Darg of Yeshua is connected Dafka to Malchus. In order to get that, there has to be the Yerida of the Mashpia to some degree, but the Yerida is only. So the Chayre Poshet, that the Yerida is the highest Mitzvah, B'chlal. All the Sviris above Yesoid are all invested in Yesoid, but no lower, and that's where the Yichud takes place. And then there's the Aliyah of Malchus to Yesoid, that's the meeting point. And that's Mamshech, Tzava Yeshua's Ya'akov, the unit of Yeshua, the Shin Ayin Hey, or the Shin Ayin Nahirin, as we explained. So that is the Moker of Malchus, and Yesoid is Megala it. Yesoid stirs Malchus and reveals her source. So that's the Yerida for the Mashpia. The Yerida for the Mashpia is his inyonim that he has, he brings down to then convey his wisdom, etc., to the Mekabel. That's Zoh being Dimshach into Yesoid. Maybe doesn't say this, but Lachayda, that's the Pshat. And the Aliyah of Malchus, the refinement, the Birur of Vayeitzei Birurim, in order to be Makabel, in order to be, first of all, united with Zoh, through which her own source, which is hidden in Zoh's Nisgala. When he did that, was Eis Daled. That was essentially Eis Daled. And he said that this is all Bisman Hazeh. But Lasid Love, once the Birur is over, everything we described now is only till now, till Lasid Love. Then, where the Tchar, the male, is the Mashpia, and stronger. Darke ish darke lichvosh. The male conquers, the female nurtures, the male conquers. So in avoida, that's the birurim that happens through ma, that's mashbia. Ma mevar ban, as we explained. Both birurishin, birisheni. Eichel metoich psoilus, eichel metoich eichel. And then, La Sedlovia, however, then Malchus does no longer Nisim Makabel from Zohar. It's equal. Adarab, it's even higher. The Kevet to say Gever. And that's why David the Malach benches Dafka La Sedlovia, the big Fabring and the Suda they used to make for the Tzadikim. Only he benches because he's the Kois, Kois Shabracha. That's because in him Dafka is the highest Giloyim. And his cup will contain Reish Chaf Aleph Login Koisi Revoya Begemati Reish 121, which alludes to or expresses Arich Kesed that's Nimshach Dafki in Malchus. That's what we're up to. And now Chazor now is hey. Understand this further. Now the truth is I got stuck till I finally was medaik a little bit, and I think this is the pshat. He says, B'taises beer in this Maimer of the Mittel Rebbe, which was being printed at the time, he said, it's man hazeh shaykhin abchayr l'Ruven. It's not so. Yosef, Yaakov took it from him and gave it to Yosef. So this threw me. So then I understood, he's saying it's shaykh to Ruven, but it's taken away. It doesn't say this man hazeh, the inyan of abchayr is Ruven. But Lasid Lovai, the Bechayra will be, now it really in theory belongs to Reuven, was taken away by Ya'akov, because he was Mavalval his, right, Yitzui, his sin with Bila, quotations. But Lasid Lovai, it'll be, the Bechayra is Dafka to Yosef. Now why is that? So he explains. Because the between both Reuven and Yosef are Bechayr, but what's the difference in the Bechayerhood, in their firstbornness? Reuven is a Bechayr to his father, and Yosef to his mother, and that's the answer. So Zman Hazeh, with the Mashpia father dominates, therefore Bechayr belongs to Shaykh to Reuven, even though Lepel he wasn't, but Shaykh to Reuven. Yosef, right? Yosef's children got double portion. That's Bechayr. And thereafter, the whole avoid in the base of Mikdash is supposed to be through the Bechir also, as it goes on to say, but we'll leave the next ois. So at any rate, so that's why Reuven now, because he's the Bechir to his father, and Yosef, when Mashiach comes, because they came to Seviv Gever, the Mile of Malchus, the mother, so therefore the Bechir will belong to the mother. Bearing in mind that notwithstanding that, Mashiach is Dafka ben David, not Yosef, as he goes on to explain subsequently. But meanwhile, he continues to elaborate on this and says, and the truth is I'm not clear, and I've asked around and didn't get any clarity either. Someone's going to do proper research on this. Namely, the whole story of the Bechayres and what Shaykh is to, and when it's Shaykh, when it's Bepeil. Because he says, let's look at it together. He said, we find at the beginning, the Avoid was by Bechayre, was the firstborn, but they were the Koyanim. Now this is Poshet. Says so in Mishnah and Medrash. And then it was taken and given to the Koyanim. What's interesting is that the Medrash doesn't say why, but he brings here, he says the Medrash does say, okay, because of the Cheta Egel, and then he adds a Cheta Egel in square brackets, it's connected with Cheta Tzadas, it's all one connection. The cause of that is Miyat Alavona, the moon being reduced by Hashem, and the cause of that is Shviras HaKelim to Toyo. And presumably he's telling us this because Toyo precedes Tikkun, that's the B'chor, that's Esav, that precedes Yaakov, and in theory is the B'chor, but because of the Yerida, Esav's Yerida, and it traces it all back, it's all one Yerida. the big crash landing was Chet HaEgel, but it's all stems from the previous Yidis, Chet HaTzadas, Miyat HaLavona, and Shviras HaKelim, which, by the way, tells us that who's responsible for all these Yidis, including Esav. The Eibishter. He did it with Shviras HaKelim already, before anything started. And that's explicit in Medrash, right? Which Medrash am I referring to? See, this quotes all the time, one of the most dangerous Midrashim, because it can be terribly exploited, abused, I should say. Noir alila b'nei Adam. God plots awesomely against man, says the Pasuk until the Medrash says, it's referring to Chet HaTzadas. Adam says, you're blaming me for sin. Your Torah says, Adam ki yomas boil, and your Torah precedes creation by 2,000 years, whatever that means. So you're blaming me for sin that's in your Torah. And the Eibishter's response, silence. You're right. In other words, yeah, God acquiesces. This is a very deep inyan in Chassidus, that the whole inyan of Chet is part of the Kavonda, and it's all in order to bring to the Aliyah, v'chulu. He's saying it explicitly, the Chet HaEgel, Chet HaTzadas, okay? That's Bchira. Mir Telavona, the Eibishter did. Shviras HaKelim precedes that even. Again, Shviras HaKelim of Toyo, that's Esav, that's the Bchir, but it fell, so it's taken away from him. Then b'mokim acher, the next few lines in the square brackets, trying to make clarity, because looking up the source in Ohr HaTorah of the Tzemach Tzedek, it doesn't seem to say exactly this. I don't have a clarkite, it's got to be thoroughly researched. But anyway, the b'mokim acher, it says that this inyan, that the B'chayrim lost their right, is connected with the Machlekes of Korach v'Adasai. If not for him, the B'chayrim would serve the Kohanim. If you look up over there, he says there that there were all these 250 people that Korach gathered, all B'chayrim. And he goes on to say here, however, in order to fix that which Korach wanted, that the Levim should be Kohanim. So this is where it's hazy. He wanted the Levim, but also the B'chayrim. It's kind of a combination of both. It's not clear there. They doesn't mention Kohen at all. They mention only B'chayr. So what's even further unclear is, so he wanted the what? That Levim should be Kohanim. They should be Kohanim. So therefore, to fix that, the Levim become secondary to the Kohanim. Replacing who? The B'chayrim. So the B'chayrim, the way you read it here, the B'chayrim lose out to fix Korach's sin. They should have been secondary. It's also not clear because Meshorasim is a Maila now here. It's tough. Lo pashut. You're welcome to research the Makaidas and get a clarity. We should make it a good. It would make a good essay. At any rate, close brackets. The point is that the Chatchila, the Avodah belonged to B'chayrim and was taken away. So what's the inyan? Because the yichus of a kohen, so he's replaced by the kohen. The yichus of the kohen is different to the yichus of the b'chayr. The kohen is the father exclusively. The mother can be Israelis, she can be a Leviah. Her children are kohenim. But the b'chayr is the mother's first issue. Peter rechem. So therefore, Bisman Azer, you understand that Avodah is in Avodah Birurim, because the Ik is the Zocha, the Tchad, and the Nukva, the female, is secondary or recipient. So the Avodah therefore now is Koyanim, because it's the father thing. But Lasid Lovoi, then the Avodah is going to be with the B'chayrim. Now, here too, yeah, okay, the mockad of that is Kabbalah, because the Torah Larizal, and a huge big chiddush at the end of this Maimid. You remember Pashat in English, Torah Chadosh. It's going to change. Behemshich to all of this. We learned it. Remember? Okay, we'll come to it in a few minutes. Let's continue. A major chiddush. Poshet Rebbe's Megalin, it's Maimer, Shal Teireh Chadash, it is mind-boggling. This is from the Arizal Teireh Chadash already. The Aveda will be with the Pcheirim that's Tluyim, but now he asks, Tzarech Lovnik, Valdik Kasha Nois Vav. Taka, the Kedusha of the Pcheir, comes from the mother, but there's another aspect of Pcheir, which is inheritance, that's exclusive with the father. And that's not going to change when Mashiach comes. To the mitzvahs lo yibatel lo asid lova. So why? Just asking you, if he's asking you, answer this question. If he's asking here that the mitzvah doesn't change, how did he just say minutes ago that the David will be b'chayre? Why isn't that part of the kasha? I'm not asking on that. They just said lo asid lova, and explain why. Because that's not a kasha. Because the chatchil was supposed to be the b'chayre. So restoring Hadarab, it's restoring it to the shleimus. Reuven, and it was supposed to be the kohen. And that's how it should have gone because of his chet. So that's not a shaila. The shaila is tzarich lahavin that the whole beer we all gave is because of the mile of the aim. But in B'chayr we see the mile of the father too, because inheritance is dafka the father, and that's not going to change. What's the answer to that? Oh, here's the big chiddush. What's the answer? Tkufa Rishona. The second tkufa will change. So to elaborate upon the answer, it's also going to be the same thing. And so that points to the mile of the father, not the mother. What's the answer? It was also beautiful before we go further in explaining how it's not going to be changed, which in the end is going to be in the first epoch. He teaches the whole pasuk of in Parshas Vayeitzei of the law of the B'chor, getting pishnayim. And weaves it into Rachel, Leah. It's right there in that whole din. Two wives, Ahuva, that's Rachel, Snua is Leah. And the B'chor is to the Sniya, that's Reuven. He still, the Torah says, you cannot give precedence to the Ben Ahuva, which is Yosef, over the Ben Asnu, which is Reuven. Okay, so that's how Allah is going to remain forever. L'chayre says no. So let's try that contradicts what we're saying here, that the mile of Dafka the Isha, of the mother, here we're seeing the mile in Nachlin, inheritance of the father. The answer is, that's the reward, the Tashlum Schar for the Avodah. Yes. But then that's the first epoch, as it goes on to say, the reward part. But then the ultimate is Taka, that it'll be the firstborn of in Nachla will be from the mother. As he goes on to say in the Zion, there's stages. The stages losid loveit. So the first answer basically is Mida keneged mida, that's the reward. The male was the one that did the avodas seburim, empowered, etc. Ma is mevarer ban. Therefore, the schar, then there'll be an aspect where zo ma, the male will have the milo, and that's in nachlo that it goes after the father. But that's the first era. Clear, gentlemen on the Zoom? Yeah. Now looking at Zion, but that's now Zion introduces that this is only the first era, because the first kufa. In the future, there are different levels, and introduced the Gemara, in Shabbos that Asida Isha, the woman will give birth every day. So there's two pirushim. It means one act of intimacy will yield many children. Second pirush is without bia at all. Not even once. And like everything, there's a mocker in Nigla for that. The Gemara says, because this is all a pikabola, the statement, Isha, I said Isha Tetzeh L'Bachal Yom is in Gemara, but the second Pirush The second Pirush is from, who does he bring it from? The Mittel Rebbe. So the Mokker is in Gemara. You see this in the Gemara, that what? That the tree will produce cakes and fine woolen clothing that's going to come without plowing, without sowing. That's just the mile of the earth itself, the mile of Malchus, without the working at the ashpa of Zoh, without mashpia at all. So what's it going to be? I see the issue should take the b'chol yom. There's two pirushim. The answer is they're both true in the two stages. The first stage is the first pirush, that through one hashpa there's many offspring, and the second there's no need for hashpa. That's taka the two tkufas. So the first kufas is the reward component, and therefore the mile of the mashpia. But the second one, the mile of malchus itself, it doesn't need the mashpia at all. On the contrary, will be the mashpia. And therefore he says, this big chiddush, that the second kufa, B'yas HaMashiach, that's the Terech HaDosha. Tchias HaMeisim, and then the law of Nachala will be from the mother, not the father. Tremendous chiddush. Yeah, now we're up to, then Ban will be higher than Ma. That's the union of the Behema Rabbi we learned recently. Ban B'gimatria Behema. Behemis v'ani bar behemis hayisi imach. Lashon Rabbim. Okay, as we counted the previous Maimon or two Maimorim ago. Okay, now continuing, we're looking at Omnom on the last page. However, so the problem still left is with that Yosef is Yisoid altogether. So B'choir me'eim, all very nice, but still he's Yisoid. So that's the Gabbai, he says like this. However, the mile of Yosef is because he's going to be his B'chayla, and that's going to be a real Asad Lavai. And therefore will be higher than Reuven, who's B'chayla Aviv. That's referring to Yosef. But in the general picture of the Shvatim, so even though Yosef be this lofty level, still the union of Malchus, Melech HaMashiach, is not Yosef, but Dafke Yehuda, Shevet Yehuda. David Avdi, Nosi Lehem Lo'ilam, David, my servant, will be their leader, their prince forever. Because Lasid Lavoi is the pure Gilui of Malchus. Yosef is Yesoid, connecting to the source of Malchus, but still the focus is Yesoid. But he's connected to Imoy. But David the Melech is pure Malchus. And that's the mile of Shemban over Shema. And that's crazy choice of David, which is higher than the Gvia of Yosef. And therefore he's going to bench. Ani avarech v'liyino levarech. That's what we're up to. We're up to Yisches. Let's begin Yisches now, the few minutes that we have. Yeah?
Interesting note that Lasid Love, it's only going to be Yehuda, not the other Shvatim.
Lasid was going to be what?
Only Yehuda.
Only?
Yehuda, and not the other Shvatim.
Melech HaMashiach is Yehuda. So we're not, but there'll still be the mile of Yosef, Ephraim and Menashe.
For the other Shvatim.
There'll still be, that mile will be in the second kufa. But the Nasi, the overarching, essential mile is Dafka Shevet Yehuda. Well, that's into two also in the whole Nevuah there. Take the two, he tells you Cheskel, take the two sticks and they merge and become one. You don't cast away the other stick, which is Yosef. So there is the Ma'ila of Mashiach ben Yosef, and there is the Ma'ila which is manifested in the B'chor le'imoy. That's what that means. But it's going to be bottle, and that will be kabel from David the Malach, from Malchus, the pure source of Malchus. But the Inyan remains, Yosef remains. He says, Agam Lasilove Yosef Bimadrege Naile be Yosef, but the Malchus is Dafke Yehuda. The Etzem is invested and revealed in Yehuda, and that permeates everything. So the mile of Yosef will be, why? Because you're Pchayla Eim. So it's a Malchus Dikamaila in Yosef. But it makes Yosef on a very high madrege. Yesod is a very high level. Yesod, as it is connected to the source of Malchus. But what's David? David is pure Malchus, the pure market.